Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you guys are at. I hope you have a fantastic day. It's SoulSaint here, and we have a new update coming along, which has to do with this new mode called Siege, which is coming to the game. And along with it, we've already had teases about like the Stronghold, which we did a video out. You can take a look on our YouTube side and you'll be able to see it. But also, they dropped some news on us about like some new rewards you're gonna be able to accomplish and acquire, right? So one of the new rewards that we're gonna be getting as a part of this new mode is going to be Authortrix Lamasu herself. So if you guys haven't seen it, like this is her. It's a legendary support demon spawn champion that's going to have an interesting kit, and I think it's going to be very valuable and substantial depending on how you look at it. So, with that being said, according to plan, it's going to be a great champion for both PvE and PvP. We're going to break down her kit. We're going to take a look at what she has to offer and see some areas that she could be valuable in. So, let's get into it. Zephyr Conquest, her A1, attacks all enemies, has a 50% chance of placing a decreased attack buff for 2 turns. When booked up, it's going to have a 60-70% chance to land that decreased attack. That's not too bad. 70% is not bad on an AoE ability. That's not bad. That's not bad. Dread Dominion. I think this is going to be one of her bread and butters, depending on what you have on your account. Has a 75% chance of placing a block buff debuff and a true fear debuff on all enemies for 2 turns. If it's a boss, instead, it will have a 75% chance to put a block buff debuff as well as a decreased speed debuff instead. This is going to be booked up to a 100% chance with it being on a 4-turn bookable up to a 3-turn cooldown. So, 2-turn duration, block buff, and decreased speed. That's already a good inclination into somewhere that you guys might be familiar with. But we'll talk about that later. Icon of Domination, her A3, is going to be removes all debuffs from a single ally except this champion and places 2 intercept stacks on them. Also fills the target's turn meter by 50% and resets the cooldown of all of their skills. This is a 6-turn cooldown, bookable down to a 4-turn cooldown. And it looks like it resets, it places the intercept stats, excuse me. And I think that's going to be an interesting one right there. Intercept is actually a buff that we've only seen Wixwell with so far, so like they're now incorporating more and more champions that's going to have this, and which is kind of on par for what we expected. You know, Enfeeblement was the first one with, I believe it was Bambus at first, but then they started incorporating to other people, like Androck, one of the mythics in the game, and so on and so forth. So like it's on par. It's on par that we're seeing more Intercept be introduced into the game this way, which is kind of cool. Let's see here. Authority manifests as a passive. It says this champion is immune to sheep debuffs. Each debuff placed by this champion decreases a target's turn meter by 5% and decreases their resistance and accuracy by 10, stacking up to a total of 100 in terms of the reduced accuracy and resistance. And then, of course, our aura is going to have an ally speed in all battles by 24%. Not bad for an all-battle aura, so it's not too bad. All right, let's break this down a little bit more. So, obviously, the A1 decreased attack is pretty good for anywhere where you're trying to produce a little bit of mitigative damage. Dread Dominion, block buffs and true fear, which is good against PvP options. So it's like a way to mitigate them having buffs. Think about your terrorists that is amplified by buffs, or champions that are enabled a little bit more, like maybe Harma with increased defense, for example. Being able to prevent that with block buffs is nice. And then, of course, being able to apply True Fear, although it's a 50-50 coin flip, it still is a great way to have a soft CC. So basically, it gives you a chance to negate an enemy's turn on that particular champion that's feared. So not too bad from a PvP standpoint. Now, we do live in a poly meta, and that was kind of cause for concern, but that passive also says that she's immune to sheep debuffs. So she can rip it and ship it as much as she wants, and there's no problems there. So for once, we actually have a poly immune champion. That's kind of interesting that we're seeing this. It's one of the first, if not the first champion that's going to have immunity to sheep. I'm here for it. I'm here for it. Now, flip it on the PvE side. If it's going against a boss, which, for example, Hydra, and all 4 of the heads of Hydra are each individual iterations of bosses, that is going to place block buff and decrease speed debuff on them instead. This is actually fantastic because block buffs is one of the staples that you would produce inside a composition when addressing types, you know, Hydra as a form of content, right? Decreased speed is also complementary, not mandatory, but as you get higher in the stages, it becomes a lot more of a desired debuff to be able to have in place so that you can have more turns and the enemy doesn't, obviously, right? That's what you want. And since this is a battle of attrition, a long-term battle, having more uptime on your side is way more beneficial than the enemy having uptime because it produces a soft enrage a lot faster, right? So decreased speed slows that down a little bit and gives you more time to work and progress in there. Being on a 2-turn duration and a 3-turn cooldown is not too bad. You just have to be a little bit more conscious about how you rotate or your speed tuning just to make sure you're staying on par with it. Most block buff champions that have their ability, think Sun Wukong, for example, it's pretty much on the same terrain of like the time frame of duration and and cooldown. So pretty much nothing to fear there. It's pretty much on the same realm. She'll be a plug and play almost everywhere. The benefit she has over all the other block buff champions outside of, you know, maybe an epic in the same faction that she is in, is that she's void. So she has no negative matchup, and she'll be useful in every single rotation to fulfill that block buff role, as well as that decreased speed, which is really, really good. So automatically a W for Hydra as an option, and honestly, because of the way her passive interacts with her kit, her being a little bit more open and being more freer to be able to debuff makes her A2 just as strong as a option for PvP, believe it or not. So very, very accurate so far when Playham is saying that she's going to be a great champion for both PvE and PvP. So far, I agree. Now, let's take a look at her A3, Icon of Domination. This is where it's going to get a little interesting, and this is where I'm going to throw some caveats and some examples of where I could foresee using her at that I'm really excited to see her play into. So, removes all debuffs from a single ally except this champion. So, she can't target herself, but she can target anybody else, right? And she places 2 intercept stacks on them. Not a problem. That's great. That gives you the ability to maybe prevent sheep on someone else, for example. So, I'm okay with this. This is good. Also fills the target's allies' turn meter by 50%. That's a huge jump to whoever she's cleansing. This is basically an example of an ability that I feel like that is great for go second strategies. So if you are looking for someone to help get your team into play, but they may not be the fastest right off the rip, but you're like, I want to get to my turn. I just need to get to my turn. Labasu could do that. And that's what that whole thing is. It not only removes any debuffs, any hard CC that would prevent your champion from getting a turn, but also makes it so that they can't be CC'd, so it's 2 stacks, so you'd have to do at least 3 forms of CC, and the first 2 get mitigated, and then the third one finally will land. Possibly, right? Also fills this champion's turn meter by 50%, so when she does cleanse that enemy, or that ally champion that she's going for, maybe that could be your damage dealer, it pushes them tremendous. 50% turn meter is a lot. If you think about Arbiter, for example, that's almost 2 iterations of her A3. And a lot of times, 1 iteration of her A3 is crazy enough to put you ahead of the enemy, more often than not. So think about this as like almost, not exactly, it's like 60% is what, you know, 2 iterations of her Arbiter would be. But it's pretty much only 10% difference in that one game there alone. But here's where it gets really scary. Resets the cooldown of all of their skills. Not a maybe, not a if or a buff or like one ability. It's all their skills completely reset. So think about your Yumiko. Think about your Kaimar. This is probably the better example. What Kaimar could do with his reset, she does to a single target, not to an entire team, but she does to a single target. And she does it better. Because not only is she giving higher turn meter, but she's also resetting their cooldowns altogether. I want to give you some examples about some teams that could be really, really dangerous. And we do have confirmation from Plarium. There was conversations that was happening amongst some of my fellow content creators. And they did announce officially that they will be able to reset pretty much... If memory serves me correctly, I'd have to look and double check, but I believe they said that it's going to be able to reset Yumiko and Kaimar, for example. So this is really going to be an interesting one. But let me clarify. They said other champions will be able to reset Lammasu. So if you have someone like Yumiko who can reset the entire team, Lammasu can reset Yumiko, Yumiko can reset Lammasu, and you kind of see this loop, right? So if you're familiar with a lot of teams in Hydra, like give, for example, Trunda as the Trunda Cheese, or maybe some other teams that incorporate resetting a lot or a loop of resetting, she actually is a viable alternative to one of those options. So does she become a higher value in content like Hydra or in PvP? The answer is absolutely. And this is what makes me very, very scared. Now, we don't know the full scope of what she's going to bring to the table in terms of... how you're going to be able to incorporate her in other areas of the game, or how you're going to be able to acquire. We do know that's going to be in the new PvP mode, but we still got to foresee a lot of the things that are going to be coming in that mode itself. So we've only gotten a piece of the puzzle so far. So I'm curious to see how the time gap or the basically the objectives are going to be to slowly acquire her. You got to think a champion like this is probably going to be behind a gate that's very comparable to like Faction Wars or even Sin City for Carnage. You know, think Lydia, Mithrala. There's going to be a little bit of time to progress. So, if I were you guys, I would start preparing pretty heavily to make sure that when you do get access to Clan Wars, which is roughly about a week, you hit the ground running so you can start getting your way towards her as soon as possible. Now, I did also want to kind of give you one other note that we also received too as well. The decreased resistance and accuracy in terms of the stacks for Authority Manifest is a permanent That's right. They said this exactly themselves, too. It's a permanent feature that's going to be... if they die, it doesn't reset when they get revived for that entire round that you're using that. So think mostly PvP. That whenever they do decrease the resistance and accuracy and it stacks up to 100, that once it gets to 100 or in general anywhere from 0 to 100 of that reduction, it doesn't go away. That is there permanently until the end of that fight. So it is not a thing to take lightly if you're going through a battle that's going to require you to have a battle of attrition. Maybe you're going against tanky teams or your team itself is very tanky. That wind-up time frame does not go down at any point or another. So be careful when you're matching up against her, or look forward to using her so that you can maybe win that battle of attrition and be able to knock out their resistances or their accuracy and efficiency. So really, really cool. And not only mentioning that too, a 24% ally speed is actually pretty significant. I think it's up there or comparable to that of like Marishka, which is also in all battles by 20-something%. I want to say 24, 25. If I'm taking a shot in the dark. So very, very good aura. This champion to me is a great contribution. It's a dangerous contribution because of what she can bring to the table. And the fact that one of the most important, or I wouldn't say important if you're trying to be competitive, but more of the more dominant features in this game, which is polymorph, and the fact that she completely disregards it because of her passive, makes her a very, very strong candidate to be able to cause some disruption. Not only that, though, but being able to push an enemy, push one of your allies into the fight, which is a lot of times, especially in Go Second strategies, all you need from your damage dealers to really kind of pack their punch. This is a good champion to get access towards. So, you guys let me know. What do y'all think about Authortrix Lamassu? Do you guys think that she's going to be worth going for? My answer is automatically a yes. I'm looking forward to trying to push for this champion, especially in the new mode. It's going to be exciting. But are you guys worried? Are you guys concerned? Are you guys excited? Like, give me some feedback about what you guys feel about it. I think I wanted to show you guys this too as well. Let me see if I can pull this up really fast for y'all. She actually, I do have a turnaround, so we're gonna get to take a look at her design here for a quick second. She is actually a really, really cool looking champion. She reminds me, I'm gonna be honest, she reminds me of Lydia. In terms of like her wings and how she's positioned in the air and all that. Maybe more closer towards like Duchess in terms of like the chassis of the character. But the design is flawless yet again. The wings are beautiful. The helmet, everything she's got going on, it's very glamorous, but it's like elegant. It's an elegant glamorous considering that this is a demon spawn champion of all champions too, which is kind of interesting. I am looking forward to seeing this guy in action. And to be honest with you, the purple's nice, man. That's a really cool blade. I like how the tip of the tail and of course the helmet are part like near like they're like antlers almost. It's beautiful. The design department don't miss, and I think we all can agree on that. They just don't miss. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Anyways, with that being said, let me know what you guys think. Are you guys gonna push hard for Lamassu? I will. Anyways, with that being said, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and as always remember, stay ascended.
Got the